Good Monday morning, everyone. This is a book by one of my favorite magical authors, one of my magical heroes, actually. This is an edition by New Falcon. And I was honored to be asked to write an introduction to it, which I'm going to share a little bit of it today, along with what I did years later with it in creating the chicken Kabbalah there of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. So, in other words, we're going to talk a little bit about Kabbalah. Why the hell are you interested in Kabbalah? What does it do? What are the games Kabbalists play? What's the purpose of it all? Let's just start here. Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford says, Kabbalah will never give us an aha, that's what that means moment. Kabbalah only serves to get the small wheels of consciousness turning smoothly until the big wheel of consciousness becomes transcendently self-evident. I'm going to begin my words of introduction by sharing a little story from my own life. My father was a Freemason. He was raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason in 1948, the year I was born. That same year, he joined the Scottish Rite and eventually received his 32nd degree and became a sublime prince of the royal secret. He was very proud of all 32 of his degree titles, which he often recited from memory. But he always dramatically deepened his voice when he pronounced the words, Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret. What's the royal secret? Dad wouldn't tell me. His only answer was, I'd discover it myself. I wouldn't exactly say my father was a mystic or a magician or a Kabbalist, but he was a free thinker and an insatiable reader. He collected and maintained a small but respectable Masonic library and always encouraged me to browse it and to read anything and everything that interested me. It was in one of his books, Morals and Dogma, by Albert Pike, that I found my clue to the secret. Strangely enough, it would also set the course of my own adult life. I confess I was initially attracted to this large and heavy old Masonic book because of all the pictures, the spooky symbols, and the mystical illustrations. When I tried to actually read parts of the book, however, I knew I was out of my grammar school depth. What I could understand was enough to open the door to the past, to a strange history of human thought, ancient gods and civilizations, exotic cultures and religions, bizarre mystery schools and magical practices. I also kept stumbling upon references to something called Kabbalah, and in Morals and Dogma it's spelled Kabbalah, and the works of the Hermetic philosophers. In fact, there were so many references to the Kabbalah within the text that they took 2 full pages in the index, and they link to 65 pages of reference to this mystical science. Excuse me. One reference in particular would ignite my quest for the royal secret, and eventually set the trajectory of my own life's work. Quote, He who desires to attain to the understanding of the great grand word and the possession of the great secret ought carefully to read the Hermetic philosophers, and must take for the key of their allegories the single dogma of Hermes contained in his emerald tablet, and follow the order indicated in the Kabbalistic alphabet of tarot. My entire adult life has been an exploration of the great works of the Hermetic philosophers, the Kabbalah, and tarot. Ironically, within Masonry itself, there's little official literature dealing directly with the esoteric or magical aspects of Kabbalah or tarot. With the exception of the sublime hints scattered within the degree ceremonies of the Scottish Rite and his book, Morals and Dogma, Brother Pike pretty much leaves everyone to their own self-education. I'm sad to report that very few Masons today share my passion. Part of my self-education began with the works of Israel Regardie, and his Garden of Pomegranates is one of the finest introductions to the study of Hermetic Kabbalah I can recommend. 40 years ago, I visited, and now it's longer than that, I visited Regardie at his home in Studio City, just a few months after I read Garden of the Pomegranates. I was Regardie starstruck, and my brain was saturated with his writing, having recently digested his Tree of Life, the Golden Dawn, the Middle Pillar, and my Rosicrucian Adventure. We shared champagne cocktails and soon discovered that as young men we both had been members of the Order of De Malay, a boys' Masonic body. We giggled as we awkwardly exchanged the secret grip sign, step, sign, and grip of a De Malay initiate. It was a wonderful icebreaker. Naturally, I wanted to talk to Regardie about experiences, his experiences as Aleister Crowley's secretary in the 1920s. And I had to ask the obligatory questions about goat sacrifices and baby eating. However, what impressed me the most about the man was simply his personality and character. He was charming but not affected, knowledgeable but not arrogant in his mastery of the subjects, witty but not cynical or sarcastic. Never before had I met anyone who seemed so comfortable in their own skin. If this is what self-mastery looks like, if this is what happens to a person after a lifetime of magical study and practice, I thought this is what I want. Kabbalah isn't a religion or a belief system, but a process of systematically waking up to self-realization by actually tricking our consciousness into expanding. I'm going to repeat that. Kabbalah is a process of systematically waking up to self-realization by actually tricking our consciousness into expanding. It does this by reorganizing our perception of absolutely everything we observe and every thought we think. Kabbalistic thought allows us to expand our consciousness to be a more accurate reflection of the supreme singularity of consciousness. Call that God, or the great architect of the universe, or just the big whatever it is. As above, so below. The oldest textbook of Kabbalah is the Sefer Yetzirah, or the Book of Creation, or more accurately, the Book of Formation. Nobody really knows who originally wrote it or when, but it predates all other works of its kind. It starts right out by telling us, Yah, the Lord of hosts, formed and created the universe in 32 mysterious paths of wisdom. Then it goes on to say these paths consist of a decade out of nothing and 22 fundamental letters, unquote. The decade out of nothing is described as a tree of life, 10 fundamental emanations from which, number 1, Godhead, somehow emanated out of a pre-existing nothingness. To our everyday consciousness, this process may look like creation, but from the point of view of Godhead, it's like being knocked on the head and drugged and falling asleep and experiencing a 10-level series of deeper and deeper hallucinatory dreams. Number 1 is the ultimate wake-up reality. That's who we really are. 2 and 3 and all the other numbers in the Tree of Life represent a progressive descent of consciousness. It's a cosmic Russian doll of consciousness. Godhead dreaming dreams within 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 dreams. Until finally at number 10, we come to your sleepy little head. As above, so below. Kabbalistic studies, exercises, and meditations help us identify, dissect, and understand each level of the Supreme Consciousness, so that we may systematically awaken from each level. The 22 letters connect the tree's 10 emanations, and like 22 little electrical transformers, each path serves to step up or step down the consciousness frequencies or level of awakeness that the emanations connect. These 22 paths are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and, quote, Kabbalistic alphabet of tarot that Brother Pike was referring to. Kabbalists strive to connect everything in the universe with everything else in the universe. We train ourselves by viewing every thought, every concept, every object as the reflection of every other object, thought, and concept. Kabbalists continue with this perpetual background meditation until the infinite unity of all existence becomes profoundly self-evident. The Kabbalist consciousness is finally realized as the perfect reflection of the divine supreme consciousness. As above, so below. And that's my introduction to Regarde's Garden of the Pomegranates. And I want to conclude with, I spent a great deal of time on the sort of the technical exercises of Hermetic Kabbalism in, well, it's hard to read this, but it's the Chicken Kabbalah of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. This is a very rare old beat-up hardcover, which I'm sure you can't get now, but you can get all sorts of versions of the paperback and audiobook and Kindle and everything of the Chicken Kabbalah. But after all of this, with my made-up rabbi as our teacher, and I try to picture what all of these bizarre technical little games that Kabbalists play. And many people get addicted to these Kabbalistic alphanumeric codes and things like that. But they're all just intended to do that one thing. Let's see if I can. They're all intended to reorganize our perception of absolutely everything we observe and every thought we think. Okay. But how did Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford gain illumination? My fictitious rabbi author here. The experience happened while he was dictating the final chapter of the book called Games Kabbalists Play. And he was talking about Temura and Gematria, the playing with alphanumeric codes and things. And the bending of the Hebrew alphabet into two layers where one letter could represent another, and then give us different numbers, and those different numbers have significance and stuff. He was talking about the Kabbalah of the 9 chambers at the moment. That's where the Kabbalah of the 9 chambers comes in. Look up R in the 9 chambers of the chart and see that R is 200, and it shares a chamber with K, 20, and B, 2. There isn't a 20 in the magic square of Saturn, but there is a 2. So in creating a sigil for Dorkiel, that's an angel he made up, I will treat 200 of R as the 2 of B, and then use the square of 2. Also, I'll have to use the 2 square as well as for K as well. Now, if this sounds incredibly, ridiculously complex, it is, okay? Other techniques of Temura divide the alphabet into 2 parts in various ways and replace letters with the letter in the box above or below it. The version in figure 41 is called the Atbish, after the first 4 letters of the code. The version of Temura in figure 42 called Altbith, after the first 4 letters in its code. As you can imagine, there are nearly infinite ways to rearrange the letters as they, and then it trails off with multiple dots, as if he is starting to drift in his ruach is starting to break down. Ruach is the intelligence level, the rational mind. Infinite way to rearrange the letters so that rearranging the letters to peel back. Infinite ways. All we can do is rearrange. It just looks like creation. Sometimes it is so we really don't climb the tree of life to get back to Godhead. We just peel back, like Solomon in the nut garden. The center germ of the nut is invisible. Nothing. yet it carries the code of all its ancestors and potential of infinite nuts to come. I am that center germ. Not the shell, not the meat, not the membranes. I am the nothing in the middle. Sometimes it becomes so very, well, I think I've said enough now about Timora. Perhaps I've just said enough now. Please excuse me. You know, dear friends, when all is said and done, it makes no difference how we rearrange or substitute our letters. It makes no difference if one number reveals another number or word or any of it. As long as all this helps us make the final connection. Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what we've done, only that we did. Every letter, every number, every word, every image, every concept, every thought and component of thought is at once the loving creator, offspring, and destroyer of every other letter, every other number, every other word, every other image, every other concept, every other thought and component of thought. It's really quite lovely, actually. So tidy. So very tidy and so very, very smooth. And the footnote there for smooth tells us that the smooth point is the Kabbalistic title to Kether, number 1 on the Tree of Life. Well, that's our little excursion into Monday Kabbalah. Yes, I've gone long enough. I hope you reach the smooth point. Let's all reach the smooth point where we wake up and realize we've been each other all along. Okay, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.